When I put up the postcard for today's broadcast, I was introduced by one of my Jeet Kune Do internet colleagues to a new term, Jazz Kune Do. Today we'll talk a little bit more about why that is way more than just a cool term. Hello everyone, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast number 143. This is the one about JKD and Jazz. As you're logging in, if you guys would be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the final edit video over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you will see cool stuff like this. The JKD Notables coffee mug. And yes, I know I'm ripping off Game of Thrones, but that's a discontinued series. This series is still continuing. So over on JKD Rebel Gear, you can find the Notables coffee mug. And I think it's also available as a t-shirt, but I'm not sure. But of course, the best thing you can do is to spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, share this video, and that way more and more people will become aware of what we're doing here. Talking about awareness, in case you're not aware, I am an island boy. So I grew up on music, notably Trinidadian calypso, Barbadian spooge, and Jamaican reggae. None of which was played while I was training in traditional martial arts. So imagine how cool it was when I started with Sifu Asano at CMAA in 1983 and discovered that blasting tunes was an integral part of the training. Long before 1983, I had developed quite an interest in modern or progressive jazz, or what we call fusion, which was the mix of traditional jazz, like traditional jazz harmonies, let's say, with funk, with R&B, even with rock music. So one evening I was DJing, right? And I think Russell is on here, so Russell knows about me and my DJing prowess. So I was DJing for my dad and one of his friends, and his friend happened to be sitting saxophonist in the Royal Barbados Police Band. So he was a professional, schooled, educated musician, and he told me that it was cool that I was into people like David Sanborn or Grover Washington Jr. or Jay Beckenstein, but he said you should check out who influenced these modern guys. Who from the old school influenced these modern guys, so that you would develop a greater understanding of the form, in this case, the form being music. So I took him at his word, and that's when my interest developed from kind of like a surface level love of the beat of fusion jazz, and it deepened into a true desire to understand the expression of the artist, right? So I'm wondering if you hear the JKD and what I just said. Can you dig that, right? So back to 83, my first California visit, Sifu Dan, this is the original book, right? I have about 3 more copies of this, but this is the original book with the, somewhere in here is, there it is, right? The dedication to Dwight and what have you, right? So, on page 97 is where you can find this. It says that, like most creative geniuses, Bruce Lee was concerned with only what is and not what could be or should be. It said that JKD is, period, spontaneous and explosively unpredictable, like a free-form jazz solo. The art was designed to prepare the student for the uncertainties he was sure to encounter in actual combat. The analogy to the music we call jazz applies on yet another level. Proponents of this new tradition-shattering sound were initially criticized for their apparent disregard for lyricism and structure. Later, when opponents finally caught on, their accolades flowed like cheap whiskey during Prohibition. Likewise, many martial arts purists at first dismissed Bruce Lee as nothing more than a street fighter and a brawler. Nonplussed, he painstakingly outlined the difference between having no form and having no form. The former denotes incompetence, the latter transcendence. Also, Bruce stressed time and again that JKD was really intended as a means of self-discovery or enlightenment. In the liner notes to his album Tawhid, contemporary jazz saxophonist Pharoah Sanders describes the process of self-discovery. I don't see the horn anymore. I'm trying to see myself. And all of that, all of what I try to do in music comes back to my conviction that if you have the discipline, you can do whatever you want to do. You yourself are the key to the universe. Now, I don't know about you, but that part about no longer seeing the horn, that reminds me of when in Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee's in conversation with the abbot, and he says, I don't hit, it hits all by itself. Remember that one in the picture of the fist and what have you. And then the latter part, the key to the universe stuff, that reminds me of when the Jeet Kune Do person, when Bruce Lee writes that the Jeet Kune Do person finds him or herself at the undifferentiated center of a circle without circumference. Okay, so yes, I was lazy and I plagiarized almost completely from Sifu Dan's book, but I am not to blame, because when I started writing the notes for this broadcast, I just found that what was in the book on page 97, if you've never read it, it said pretty much exactly what it is that I was trying to convey. Now, weeks before all of this, when I first had the idea for the title and what have you, so let me tell you what I'll break it down for you. We know that we struggle with the acceptance that there can be more than one approach to Jeet Kune Do. And while I do not subscribe to the idea that there can be completely different approaches to Jeet Kune Do, I will revise something that I have said earlier about the art. And what I said earlier was that I didn't believe that there was such a thing as different interpretations of Jeet Kune Do. Because, and back then, my reasoning was what Bruce Lee said about human anatomy. Unless people have, 4 arms and 3 legs, it's impossible for them to come up with a radically different set of techniques or what have you. But what happened a little while ago, I was writing, I had the live jazz video playlist going, and I don't know how many of you guys are familiar. If you're jazz heads, you'd be familiar with Paul Desmond's composition for the Dave Brubeck Quartet, I think, a classic called Take 5. So that's what came on. But it was not the well-known 1960 or 1964 live version. Instead, it was a 2004 performance, right? So 2004. So this is a song that was composed and released back in like 1959. So we're talking now 45 years later, right? Or something. Yeah. Okay. So the only original quartet member in 2004 was Dave Brubeck himself. And I've heard this song hundreds of times, so I wasn't really paying attention. But then it hit me that this song that was a hit in 1959, and now these guys are playing a 2004 version. Now, as a self-taught percussionist, the live version 1960, 1964, the drum solo by Tommy Morello, is it? Tom Morello, I think, right? that's like a classic. So it was really interesting when the other drummer did his solo, and I realized that his solo, I think this guy is David Jones, his solo was an interpretation of Joe Morello's drum solo from 40 years before. So you get what I'm saying, right? So what say you? Do you think that jazz and Jeet Kune Do, as I've just explained, have a lot in common, and that the way a song can be interpreted differently by different artists, that the same can be said of Bruce Lee's art, right? So feel free, share, like, comment, ask questions. I'll review everything after posting. Sign up for notifications for when we go live here on Facebook, and please subscribe over on the YouTube channel for the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast and the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. And when you're there, be sure to like, rate, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. ILoveJeetKuneDo.com, the Quick Skills Series Volume 1, still available. Coming up on Friday, November 6th. Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with Andy Norman of Defense Lab. Andy is the night walker, and so we will be on at 6 p.m. Eastern time, which is like midnight over in Spain where he is. So that's Jeet Kune Do Dialogues with Andy Norman at 6 p.m. on Friday. Today is a pastel day, so I went with Bruce Van Gogh. So that's, let me show it to you again. It's the coolest shirt ever, right? Okay, so I will see some of you on Friday for Defense Lab Dialogues, and the rest of you, hopefully I'll see you next Wednesday for another issue of the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast. Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care now. Stay safe. No pressure. All right, so start attach position, box on. All right. Okay, now in the attachment.
Show off.
Okay, now capture and flight. Capture and flight.
Park and stop, go.
More simultaneous than that. Ha! See? Do it that way every time. Start, attach position, go. Gain the attachment. Capture and flight. And off.
Yes.
Right? But those three.
Sir,
Right.
sir.